in the grim darkness of the far future. We watch.
In the Imperium of Man, there are secrets buried so deep that even the Omnissiah's most devoted servants have forgotten they exist. Some worlds vanish from records not through clerical error, but through deliberate design. Some technologies predate the Age of Strife itself, relics of human ingenuity that the Mechanicus would kill entire populations to possess. And some rulers understand that survival means staying hidden, even when you possess the power to shake galaxies. Today's story asks a question that the tech priests of Mars would call heresy. What happens when a king guards secrets that could reshape the Imperium itself? If you hunger for more tales from the Dark Millennium, where ancient powers collide with the brutal machinery of the 41st millennium, smash that subscribe button. The Emperor protects those who seek knowledge in the darkness, and this channel delivers the stories the Inquisition would rather you never heard. Our tale begins not with the king, but with the seeker. Magos explorator Valdris Crane had spent 2 centuries searching the Ghoul Star's outer reaches, his augmented body more machine than flesh, his mind more data vault than consciousness. His expedition fleet, 3 Mechanicus survey vessels and their Skitarii escorts, existed for one purpose: to uncover lost standard template construct fragments that might elevate his standing within the priesthood of Mars. The fragment he had recovered from a derelict space hulk near the Halo stars changed everything. It wasn't complete. STC fragments never were. But the crystalline data lattice contained references to something the ancients called vibranium, a mineral with properties that defied known physics, energy absorption coefficients that suggested impossibility, molecular structures that should collapse under their own quantum instability but somehow remain stable. The fragment included partial coordinates, corrupted by millennia but recoverable through algorithmic divination. Crane had reconstructed those coordinates. They pointed to a region marked on imperial star charts as Sector Obscurus Tertius, Zone Quarantine Sigma. No explanation, no warning, just emptiness where a dozen systems should exist. That emptiness was a lie. When Crane's fleet translated from the warp into real space, his auger arrays immediately screamed impossible readings. A star system blazed before them, 7 planets orbiting a stable yellow sun, all registering atmospheric compositions, electromagnetic signatures, and thermal outputs consistent with human habitation. The 4th planet from the sun burned brightest in the sensor feeds. Forge world-class manufacturing detected, his Lex mechanic intoned through Voxbead, the tech priest's vocal cords long since replaced with superior mechanical alternatives. Industrial output exceeds Ryza pattern specifications by 43%. Energy signatures, Magos, these readings are heretical. They suggest technology operating outside Omnissia-approved parameters. Crane's mechadendrites twitched with anticipation, their manipulator claws clicking in a rhythm that matched his elevated heartbeat, one of the few organic systems he had retained. Prepare a diplomatic envoy. If this world has avoided Mechanicus oversight, they've done so deliberately. We approach with caution. The planet designated as Wakan on their fragmentary charts grew larger in the viewing port. Its surface glittered with city lights even on the day side, a waste of energy that suggested either primitive inefficiency or resources so abundant that conservation was unnecessary. Great structures rose from a landscape of jungle and mountain, their architecture too organic for standard imperial design, too elegant for Mechanicus functionality. As they achieved high orbit, a transmission cut through their Vox channels with crystalline clarity. No distortion, no signal degradation, just perfect digital reproduction that made Crane's communication servitors seem crude by comparison. "Mechanicus vessel, you have entered Wakandan sovereign space." The voice carried authority, backed by harmonics that suggested advanced vocal synthesis. "State your purpose or withdraw beyond the heliopause. We do not welcome uninvited guests, and our hospitality toward those who ignore warnings is final." Crane responded personally, his augmented vocal cords projecting the ritual cadences of the Mechanicus priesthood. "I am Magos Explorator Valkis Crane of Mars, servant of the Omnisia, seeker of sacred knowledge. We detected STC references to this world and seek audience with your planetary authority. In the name of the Emperor God and the Machine God, we request permission to establish diplomatic contact." Silence stretched for 17 seconds. Crane's internal chronometer measured it precisely. Then the response came, and with it, Crane's world shifted on its axis. "Very well, Magos. You may send a single envoy shuttle. Come to the coordinates we're transmitting. Our king will decide whether you leave this system with knowledge or simply leave." As the transmission ended, Crane's auger arrays picked up new contacts emerging from the planet's atmosphere. 12 craft, sleek and dark, moving with acceleration curves that violated standard Imperial propulsion theory. They took up escort positions around his fleet with surgical precision, their weapon systems powered but not locked. Crane realized with sudden cold certainty that he'd found something far more significant than an STC fragment. He'd found a world that didn't fear the Mechanicus. The shuttle's descent through Wakan's atmosphere revealed impossibilities with each passing kilometer. Crane's optical sensors cataloged everything, cities that gleamed with architectural principles unknown to Imperial records, transport networks that moved without visible engines, agricultural terraces that climbed mountainsides with mathematical precision. But what struck him most profoundly was the absence of something every Imperial world possessed: the crushing weight of decay. There were no hive spires choking on their own pollution, no factorum districts belching toxic waste into poisoned skies, no press of desperate billions living in squalor beneath the elite. Wakan looked maintained, prosperous, impossible. The shuttle touched down on a landing platform that absorbed kinetic energy so efficiently his inertial dampeners barely registered the contact. Crane emerged with 2 Skitarii escorts, their galvanic rifles held at ceremonial rest, threatening enough to demonstrate capability, passive enough to avoid immediate offense. A delegation waited, 20 warriors in gleaming armor that Crane's material scanners couldn't properly classify. Not ceramite, not plasteel. Something that registered as organic metal hybrid alloys his database had no reference for. They moved with disciplined precision, flanking a central figure whose presence dominated the platform despite his lack of augmentation. The man wore a suit of midnight black that seemed to absorb light itself, a stylized panther helm covering his features. He stood with the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute authority, yet his stance suggested readiness for violence that would make even a space marine wary. "Magos Crane," the figure's voice resonated through his helm with that same crystalline clarity from the transmission. "I am T'Challa, King of Wakanda, protector of the Vibranium Forges. You've traveled far to reach a world that prefers to remain undiscovered." Crane's mechanodendrites performed a gesture of greeting from his order's protocols. "Your Majesty, I come seeking knowledge of technologies your world possesses. The Mechanicus offers alliance, technological exchange, and protection under the Imperium, T'Challa removed his helm, revealing features that carried both nobility and calculation. His eyes held an intelligence that was entirely organic, yet somehow more penetrating than Crane's augmented optics. The Imperium, the same Imperium that would strip our world bare to fuel its war machine, that would enslave my people to serve Mars, that considers any technology not blessed by your cult Mechanicus to be heresy. The Omniscii's wisdom guides all righteous. Your Omniscii is a corpse god's dream interpreted by priests who've forgotten more than they remember. We remember what humanity was before the age of strife, Magus Crane. Your Omniscii is a corpse god's dream interpreted by priests who've forgotten more than they remember. We remember what humanity was before the age of strife, Magus Crane. Our ancestors fled the techno-barbarians and Mars's early machine cults, carrying with them knowledge they refused to let be corrupted or lost. They found this world, found vibranium, and built something that doesn't require trillions to suffer so that billions might live in squalor. Crane's logic engines struggled with the cognitive dissonance. Everything about this world violated Mechanicus doctrine, yet functioned. Impossible. No world can stand outside the Imperial's protection and survive. The Xenos, the ruinous powers. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. T'Challa led them through corridors that demonstrated engineering principles Crane's order had spent 10,000 years trying to rediscover. Gravity plates that required no visible power source, lighting that produced no heat waste, walls constructed from materials that his Ozpecs couldn't penetrate. They emerged into a forged cathedral that made Crane's breath, unnecessary but retained from habit, catch in his chest. The chamber stretched for kilometers, its ceiling lost in shadow despite perfect illumination below. Assembly lines moved with balletaic precision, manufacturing items Crane recognized and many he didn't. Worker artisans, unaugmented humans, operated machinery with competence that would shame Mechanicus adepts. No servitors, no lobotomized cyborgs, just humans working in what appeared to be safety, comfort. Vibranium, T'Challa gestured to ingots moving along anti-grav conveyors. It absorbs kinetic energy, stores it, releases it on command. Our ancestors discovered it here, learned to work it, built our civilization upon it. We've created shields that make Imperial void shields primitive, weapons that pierce ceramic like parchment, power sources that would fuel entire sectors without the screaming of tortured psychers. Crane's augmented mind raced through implications. Mars would go to war for this knowledge. Mars has tried. 3 times in 10,000 years, Mechanicus fleets have discovered us. 3 times we've convinced them to forget. Our stealth systems keep us hidden from astropathic detection. Our defenses make invasion costly beyond any potential gain. And our intelligence networks ensure we know when seekers come looking. Then why reveal yourself now? T'Challa turned, his gaze carrying weight that had nothing to do with augmentation. Because what's coming for the Imperium makes our isolation untenable. The galaxy is dying, Magos. Even we cannot stand alone against the darkness. But neither will we surrender what we are to become another cog in your decaying machine. Crane understood then. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an ultimatum wrapped in hospitality.
Magus Crane's report to Mars was precise, comprehensive, and apocalyptic in its implications. A human civilization operating with STC-level technology outside Mechanicus control, manufacturing capabilities that rivaled Forge worlds, resources that could shift the balance of power in the Imperium itself. He recommended diplomatic integration, technological exchange under controlled parameters, and patience. Mars heard unsanctioned technology and refusal to submit. The response fleet arrived in Wakanda's system 6 months later. Fabricator Locum Hexus Denominator, commanded the reclamation force from the bridge of the Onisia's Verdict, a Mechanicus battlecruiser bristling with weapons batteries that could crack continents. 3 additional cruisers, a dozen escorts, and transport vessels carrying 30,000 Skitarii Rangers formed a fleet designed for overwhelming force. Hexus had built his reputation on bringing non-compliant Forge worlds to heel. Wakanda would be no different. Planetary Authority. This is Fabricator Locum Hexus Denominator of Mars. His transmission cut through the void with mechanical authority. By decree of the priesthood of Mars and the authority vested in the Adeptus Mechanicus, this world and all its resources are hereby claimed for the Omnisia. You will surrender all technological archives, submit your manufacturing base to Mechanicus control, and accept integration into the Imperium's tithe structure. Compliance is not negotiable. Resistance is heresy. You have 1 planetary rotation to respond. T'Challa's reply came within seconds, broadcast across all channels. Fabricator Locum, you mistake our reluctance for weakness. Wakanda bows to no external authority. Your fleet will withdraw or discover why we've remained hidden for 10 millennia. We do not desire war, but we have never feared it. Hexus's laugh emerged as a burst of binary cant from his vocal synthesizers. Admirable defiance, ultimately futile. You possess no orbital defenses we can detect. Your atmospheric craft cannot reach void combat altitude. You have 1 world. We have the Imperium. Your answer is expected in 23.7 hours. The timer began counting down. Still with us in the darkness? Hit that like button if you can feel the tension building, because what the Mechanicus didn't understand was that some technologies are designed specifically not to be detected. When Hexus's deadline expired, he gave the order with mechanical precision. Commence orbital bombardment. Target industrial centers. Demonstrate the cost of refusing the Omnisia's mercy. The Omnisia's Verdict's lance batteries swiveled, plasma coils charging with the whine of barely contained stellar fury. Energy signatures that could vaporize city blocks built to apocalyptic crescendo. Then fired. The lances never reached Wakanda's surface. A shimmer appeared in the void, not void shields, which Mechanicus sensors could read and calibrate against. This was something else. A field that seemed to drink the lance fire, absorbing terajoules of destructive energy and simply dispersing it. The planet's atmosphere didn't even ripple. Impossible, Hexus's leximechanic reported, panic creeping into mechanical monotones. Energy conversion efficiency reading at 98.6%. That exceeds theoretical maximum by... I see the readings. Hexus's mechadendrites twitched with agitation. Recalibrate weapons. Maximum bombardment. Drown their shields in sustained fire. For 17 minutes, the Mechanicus fleet poured destruction onto Wakanda. Lance batteries, macro cannons, torpedo spreads. Enough ordnance to sterilize a hive world. The shields held. Then, Wakanda returned fire. They came from the planet's surface, not missiles, not torpedoes, but projectiles moving at velocities that made Mechanicus targeting systems scream error codes. Kinetic rounds accelerated by technology that violated every principle of Imperial physics, wrapped in fields that prevented point defense systems from acquiring lock. The first round struck the escort frigate Righteous Algorithm amidships. Vibranium-tipped penetrators punched through void shields as if they didn't exist, through armor plating rated to withstand capital-grade weapons. The frigate broke apart in silence, its reactor going critical in a brief fusion bloom. Evasive maneuvers, Hexus commanded, But the Omnissiah's verdict was a cathedral in space, vast, powerful, and ponderous. The next salvo caught them along the dorsal hull, shattering weapons batteries and depressurizing 3 decks. Then, the Wakandan atmospheric craft launched. They rose from the planet on pillars of azure energy. 12 sleek fighters that shouldn't be able to reach orbital altitude but somehow did. Their acceleration curves made servitor pilots' brains hemorrhage trying to match them. They moved like organisms rather than machines, flowing around incoming fire with impossible grace. One fighter streaked past the cruiser Machina Sanctus, releasing a payload that attached to the hull with magnetic precision. The explosion that followed was surgical, taking out the ship's primary Auspex array without breaching the reactor. Blind, the cruiser fired wildly, hitting one of its own escorts. Hexus watched his fleet dissolve into chaos against an enemy that fought with principles his order had never encountered. Technology that combined organic philosophy with mechanical precision. Weapons that absorbed energy rather than generating it. Tactics that prioritized precision over overwhelming force. Everything that the Mechanicus had forgotten in 10,000 years of dogma. "Fall back to high orbit," Hexus transmitted, each word extracted like rusted bolts. "Establish defensive formation. All ships, damage reports." The reports came in. 3 escorts destroyed, 2 cruisers crippled, his own flagship damaged, casualties in the thousands. Wakan's shields remained at full strength.
The orbital stalemate lasted 3 days. Hexus refused to retreat. Such failure would see him disassembled by his own order, but neither could he advance. His fleet hung in a high orbit, weapons trained on a world that had proven it could bleed the Mechanicus without suffering a scratch in return. On the 4th day, T'Challa transmitted an offer. "Fabricator Locum, you've demonstrated Mars's strength. We've demonstrated Wakanda's resilience. Thousands have died for pride and doctrine. I propose we meet, face to face, aboard neutral ground. A delegation exchange. Surely the Mechanicus values efficiency over endless attrition." Hexus's first instinct was refusal, but his logic engines calculated the alternatives. Continue bombardment against shields that showed no degradation, or request reinforcements and admit failure to the Synod. Neither option led to favorable outcomes. Acceptable. We meet aboard the transport vessel Sacred Mechanism. Minimal security details. Any treachery will result in immediate planetary extinction protocols. Understood. And Fabricator Locum, we both know your extinction protocols failed 3 days ago. Let's speak honestly, at least. The meeting chamber aboard the Sacred Mechanism had been cleared of all but essential personnel. Hexus arrived with 4 Skitarii Vanguard, their radium carbines loaded and primed. T'Challa entered with his Dora Milaje, 4 warriors in vibranium weave armor that Hexus's sensors couldn't properly analyze, carrying spears that his threat assessment routines flagged as devastatingly lethal despite their primitive appearance. They faced each other across a table of bare steel. "You fight well for heretics," Hexus began, his vocal synthesizer stripped from diplomatic protocols. "But you cannot fight the entire Imperium. Mars will send larger fleets. The Imperial Navy will follow. Eventually, weight of numbers will crack even your impossible shields." T'Challa sat with the relaxed readiness of a predator at rest. "Perhaps, but how many ships will Mars sacrifice? How many Skitarii? Your order hoards resources jealously, Fabricator Locum.
Every vessel lost here is one not defending Forge worlds from chaos incursions, Tyranid hive fleets, or orc wogs. How long before Mars decides Wakanda costs more than it's worth? The technology you possess is worth any cost. Then let me offer you a different calculation. T'Challa activated a hololith projector, not Imperial pattern, something sleeker, that displayed star charts of the surrounding sectors. In the past decade, how many Forge worlds has Mars lost to Xenos assault? How many manufactorium complexes have fallen silent behind chaos incursions? Hexus's mechadendrites twitched. The answer was classified, but his hesitation confirmed accuracy. 17 Forge worlds, 17 seats of the Omnissiah's power silenced. Your Imperium is hemorrhaging capability it can never replace because you've forgotten how to truly innovate. You maintain, you reproduce, but you no longer create. You worship the machine, but have forgotten why your ancestors built them. The STC templates contain all necessary knowledge. Fragments. T'Challa's voice cut like a power blade. You possess fragments of fragments, interpreted through 10,000 years of religious corruption. We possess complete manufacturing protocols for technologies your order considers mythical. Anti-gravity systems that don't require obscene power consumption. Medical technology that heals without turning humans into servitors. Weapons that don't require a tech priest's prayer to function reliably. Hexus leaned forward, optical sensors focusing with predatory intensity. Name your price for this knowledge. It's not for sale, but it might be for trade. The Fabricator Locum's augmented mind raced through implications, possibilities, heresies. Explain. T'Challa activated a gesture, and one of his warriors placed a small container on the table. Inside, a mineral that gleamed with inner light, raw vibranium, unprocessed but radiating potential energy that Hexus's sensors sang with possibility. We cannot stand alone forever. The galaxy darkens, and isolation serves no one when extinction threatens all. We offer Mars a partnership. Not subjugation, not integration. Partnership. We provide limited technological exchange, specific innovations that won't compromise our sovereignty. In return, Mars provides intelligence on Xenos movements, chaos incursions, threats we cannot detect from our isolation. The Synod would never accept. The Synod would accept miracles. T'Challa's smile held no warmth. Imagine returning to Mars not with a subjugated world, but with an alliance that provides breakthrough technologies without the cost of conquest. Imagine presenting Fabricator General with energy shield technology that could protect Forge worlds from orbital bombardment. Imagine kinetic weapons that could penetrate Xenos armor your current arsenals cannot scratch. Hexus's logic engines warred with his indoctrination. Everything about this proposal violated Mechanicus doctrine. Technology outside their control is heresy. Partnerships imply equality with non-augmented humans. The Omnissiah's teachings demanded total submission. But the Omnissiah's teachings also demanded preservation of knowledge above all else. What guarantees would Mars receive? Hexus asked, the question itself an admission. Magos Crane remains here as liaison officer. We establish a joint research facility in-system, staffed by both our peoples. Technology transfers occur gradually with verification protocols. We share intelligence on mutual threats. And, most importantly, T'Challa's expression hardened to something ancient and absolute. Mars officially records Wakanda as a Mechanicus protectorate in your archives, but never attempts to actually govern us. We remain hidden, you remain officially in control, and the truth stays between us. A lie to preserve both our positions. An efficient solution to an impossible problem. Very Mechanicus of me, wouldn't you say?
The Treaty of Wakanda took 6 weeks to negotiate. Every clause was warfare by another means, Hexus demanding access, T'Challa granting only enough to satisfy without surrendering autonomy. The Fabricator Locum returned to Mars with something no Mechanicus expedition had brought back in centuries, genuine technological advancement rather than mere archaeological recovery. The first exchange occurred 3 months after the fleet's departure. Magos Crane, now permanently stationed on Wakanda as the official Mechanicus liaison, stood in a laboratory that would have made the Fabricator General weep with envy. Wakandan scientists, unaugmented yet somehow possessing understanding that rivaled his own, demonstrated a portable shield generator small enough to mount on individual armor. The vibranium matrix absorbs kinetic and energy impacts, explained Shuri, the king's sister and head of Wakandan technological development. She was young by Crane's standards, barely into her 3rd decade, yet her mind operated with precision that required no augmentation to achieve brilliance. We are providing you with simplified versions, still leagues beyond your current void shield technology, but without the core resonance frequencies that could compromise our primary defensive grid. Crane's mechanodendrites carefully manipulated the device, his sensors drinking in every detail. Mars will require manufacturing specifications. Mars will receive assembly instructions for the simplified model. The underlying principles remain ours. Shuri's tone carried her brother's same uncompromising steel. That's the agreement, Magos. You gain capability without understanding. Frustrating for your order, I'm sure, but necessary for our survival. It was frustrating. It violated every principle of the quest for knowledge that defined Mechanicus' existence. Yet, as Crane interfaced with the shield generator's machine spirit, no, he had to stop thinking in those terms. Wakandan technology didn't house machine spirits because it was simply technology, built and understood rather than worshipped. He recognized the genius of the arrangement. Mars received tools to strengthen the Imperium. Wakanda retained the knowledge that made those tools possible. Both sides gained, neither side surrendered. Heresy had never been so efficient. The first field test occurred when a Chaos Warband emerged from the warp at the edge of the sector. A minor incursion, 3 frigates trailing corruption like diseased blood, but enough to threaten an Imperial mining colony on Tertius VII. The defense fleet arrived equipped with Wakandan shield generators. The Chaos Lances, empowered by the warp's reality-bending fury, struck Imperial void shields that absorbed 90% of the impact rather than the standard 40%. The corrupted warships died screaming, their crews denied the slaughter they had anticipated, cut apart by Imperial weapons while their own attacks splashed uselessly against impossible defenses. The after-action reports spread through Mechanicus channels like wildfire. Mars wanted more. The Fabricator General himself transmitted directly to Hexus demanding increased production of the Wakanda pattern defensive matrices. T'Challa provided them, slowly, carefully, always ensuring that each gift created dependency without providing independence. A year into the partnership, the true test arrived. An Orc Wa emerged from the galactic east,
a green tide that crashed through 3 systems before Imperial forces could coordinate response. The Mechanicus fleet that moved to intercept included the Omnisia's Verdict, now repaired and equipped with Wakandan kinetic batteries alongside its standard armament. Hexus commanded from the bridge, watching his auger displays track hundreds of Orc vessels, crude, brutal, and terrifyingly numerous. The Greenskins came on without strategy, without formation, just raw aggression powered by their psychic gestalt field. All ships maintain formation, Hexus transmitted. Wakan pattern shields to maximum. Kinetic batteries acquire targets for the Omnisia and Mars. The battle that followed would be analyzed in Mechanicus tactical archives for decades. Imperial ships that should have been overwhelmed weathered the Orc assault, their shields absorbing punishment that would have crippled traditional defenses. Wakandan kinetic weapons punched through Orc armor with devastating efficiency, each shot precisely calculated to maximize destruction while conserving ammunition. The Wa broke against Mechanicus steel reinforced by Wakandan innovation. Orc vessels died by the dozen, their wreckage forming a debris field that would orbit the system for centuries. The few survivors fled back into the void, carrying tales of Zagan Hume ships what wouldn't stay dead. Hexus watched the victory unfold and understood something that would have been heresy to speak aloud. The Mechanicus had stagnated not from lack of knowledge, but from refusal to adapt. Wakanda had survived 10,000 years not through isolation alone, but through maintaining the one thing Mars had surrendered, the willingness to innovate rather than merely preserve. Back on Wakan, T'Challa received the battle reports with quiet satisfaction. The Alliance held. The Imperium gained strength without gaining the secrets that strength derived from, and Wakanda remained hidden behind official classifications that made them simultaneously essential and invisible. His ancestors had fled the age of strife, carrying humanity's potential. They'd preserved it through darkness and silence. Now, carefully, they were sharing it. Not to save the Imperium from collapse, but to ensure that if humanity survived the long night's return, it would survive with more than just faith and fury. In the throne room where vibranium pillars caught the light of a sun that had never known Imperial exploitation, T'Challa stood before the hololithic map of a galaxy drowning in war. "Wakanda forever," he whispered. And in the shadows between stars, an alliance born of necessity began reshaping the balance of power in ways neither the Imperium nor its enemies would understand until far too late.
The Treaty of Wakan established a precedent that would echo through the centuries to come. A human civilization operating within the Imperium sphere, yet maintaining autonomy through technological superiority and strategic necessity. The Mechanicus gained access to innovations that strengthened humanity's war machine without surrendering the dogma that defined their order. Wakanda gained protection through recognition, their secrets hidden behind official classifications that made them simultaneously invaluable and invisible. But such arrangements carry costs measured in souls and compromises. T'Challa had accepted that Wakandan technology would now kill in the Imperium's name, that his people's gifts would fuel endless war rather than elevating human civilization. The Alliance preserved Wakanda's independence, but at the price of becoming another cog, however privileged, in the Imperium's vast machine of destruction. Magos Crane, witnessing daily the gap between what humanity had been and what it had become, struggled with questions his order had abandoned millennia ago.
Was preservation of knowledge worth anything if that knowledge served only to extend suffering? Could innovation and faith coexist, or must one always consume the other? In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there are no pure victories. Wakanda endured. The Imperium gained strength, but the fundamental question remained unanswered. Can enlightenment survive in an age that worships ignorance as holy doctrine? The vibranium forges burn eternal, crafting miracles for an empire that has forgotten what miracles truly cost. And in the void between stars, new threats gather, drawn by the light of human achievement like moths to a flame that will consume them all. The Emperor protects, but sometimes survival requires more than faith alone.